What is social work with groups? It is a method of social work which helps individuals improve their social functioning through purposeful group experiences and cope effectively with their personal, group, or community problems. Types of group. There are a variety of groups that occur in social work. Number 1, social conversation. Social conversation is often used to determine that what kind of relationship might develop with people we do not know very well. So in social work, social conversation with other professionals is quite frequent. But when it comes to group which involve clients, it will have some objectives other than conversation, such as resolving a personal problem. Number 2, recreation or skill building. Recreational groups, it can be divided as informal recreational groups or skill building recreational groups. A recreational group service agency could be a YMCA or a YWCA or any community center which offers some physical space and the use of some equipment to provide activities for enjoyment and exercise. While a skill building recreational group, it has an increased focus on task and is guided by an advisor or a coach or instructor. The objective is to improve a set of skills in somewhat enjoyable way. For example, activities like arts and crafts or sports such as basketball or swimming. These groups are led by professionals with recreational training rather than social work training. Number 3, education. Educational groups teach specialized skills and knowledge such as classes on child rearing, stress management, parenting, English as a second language, or some other sort of training. Educational groups usually have a classroom atmosphere and it involves considerable group interaction and discussion. A professional person with expertise in the area, which could often be a social worker, he or she assumes the role of a teacher. Number 4, task. Task groups are formed to achieve a specific set of tasks or objectives. For example, a board of directors is an administrative group that is charged with responsibility for setting the policy governing agency programs. A task force is a group established for a special purpose and is usually disbanded after the task is completed. Number 5, problem solving and decision making. There is actually considerable overlap between task group and these kind of groups. In fact, problem solving and decision making groups can be considered a subcategory of task groups. Social service providers, they use the group meetings for objectives such as developing a treatment plan for a client or a group of clients, or deciding that how best to allocate the whatever little resources they have. Number 6, focus groups. Focus groups are closely related to task groups and problem solving and decision making groups. They may be formed for a variety of purposes, which could be to identify needs or issues, to generate proposals that will resolve the identified issue, and to also test reactions to alternative approaches to an issue. Number 7, self-help and mutual aid. Self-help groups are voluntary, small group structures which are usually formed by peers who have come together for mutual assistance in satisfying a common need, overcoming a common handicap or life-disrupting problem, and bring about the desired social or personal change. The initiators and members of such groups perceive that their needs are not or cannot be met through existing social institutions. Socialization. The primary objective of most socialization groups is to develop attitudes and behaviors in group members that are more socially acceptable. Developing social skills, increasing self confidence, and planning for the future are other focuses. And number 9, treatment groups. Treatment groups are usually composed of members who have severe emotional, behavioral, and personal problems. Leaders of such groups must have superb counseling and group leadership skills, including the ability to accurately perceive the core of each member's response to what is being communicated. Group leaders must also have the personal capacities to develop and maintain a constructive atmosphere within a group. Initial development of groups. The process of establishing and conducting groups, it varies significantly depending on the type of group and the specific purposes to be achieved. For a group to reach its maximum potential, there are some common elements which needs to be addressed prior to establishing the group. These factors which will be discussed now are determining a group's objective, size, open-ended or close-ended status, and duration. So number 1, determining objectives. Careful attention should be given to the objectives for a group which is formed in order to select the correct members, the effective members. For example, problem-solving groups, it often requires the expertise of professionals in other disciplines, professionals whose skills and knowledge will directly contribute to the accomplishment of group goals. Some of these professionals may have backgrounds, training, and perceptions that differ from those of the social worker. While this approach produces a group with a wealth of expertise, it will also create additional demands on the leader. When the members have diverse background and interest, other difficulties include problems encountered in setting goals, prioritizing goals, and determining the tasks to be performed. Therefore, it is essential that the objectives or purposes of each group is established at the beginning, because it can have a significant impact on the process of membership selection and other aspects of functioning. Number 2, size. The size of a group affects members' satisfactions, interactions, and the amount of output per member. Usually, smaller groups are rated more favorably. Larger groups are actually often more successful in resolving complex problems. While members in larger groups, they experience more stress and greater communication difficulties, they usually bring a greater number of problem solving skills and resources to the group as a whole. Since each person has few opportunities to interact in a large group, some members can feel inhibited and reluctant to speak. So, as the size of the group increases, discussion generally hinges on the input of the most frequent contributor, who assumes a dominant role. As a result, the gap in participation widens between the most frequent contributor and the other members of the group. So basically, a group should be large enough to allow members to speak freely without being inhibited, and small enough to permit a moderate level of intimacy and involvement. Open-ended versus closed-ended groups. Whether the group will be open-ended with new members adding as old members leave, or whether the membership will remain constant until termination, it should be determined at the outset. Open-ended groups provide a measure of synergism through the addition of new members, while a closed-ended group can often function more effectively because it has a relatively constant population, and operates within a specified time frame. The next component, duration. The duration of a group has two related components: the number of sessions and the length of each session. Many groups they meet for 1 to 2 hours once or twice a week for a specified number of weeks. Meeting for 1 to 2 hours, it tend to optimize productive activity and behavior. Meeting lengths shorter than 1 hour usually do not allow sufficient time to thoroughly discuss the issues that are raised. In meetings which last longer than 3 hours, members tend to become drowsy, tired, frustrated, and unable to concentrate. Setting meetings in which there are 3 or 4 days between meetings, it usually allows that members to spend some time to work on the tasks that are designed to accomplish their personal goals and the goals of the group. There are different stages of group. The number one stage is intake. During intake, the presenting concerns and needs of the prospective members are identified. An agreement is often made between the members of the group and the group leader about the tentative group goals. This stage can also be referred to as the contract stage, as the leader and the members make a commitment to pursue the situation to the next step. The next stage of the group is selection of members. Individuals who will most likely benefit from a group, they should be selected as members. Selecting a group requires attention to both descriptive and behavioral factors. A decision needs to be made whether to seek homogeneity or diversity in these factors. There are a few guidelines as to when diversity and when homogeneity of these factors will be the most effective and efficient. For example, age, gender, level of education, these are descriptive factors and may create homogeneity or foster diversity within group. The third stage is assessment and planning. A more in-depth assessment and statement of goals and plans for action occur during this phase. In reality, this step is completed only when the group ends, because the dynamic nature of most groups, they require an ongoing adjustment of goals and intervention plans. So goals should be time limited with a reasonable chance for attainment, and the leader should ensure that all goals are clearly stated to help in later evaluations. Clarification of goals, it also eliminates the hidden agendas. The next stage of group is the group development and intervention. Numerous models of group development, they have evolved over time. Some of these models will be discussed in the next section of this session. So the next stage and the last stage is evaluation and termination. To think of evaluation as a specific point in the life of a group is perhaps not realistic, since evaluation must be an ongoing process. So the decision to terminate a group may be based on the accomplishment of group or individual goals, the expiration of a predetermined period of time, the failure of the group to achieve desired ends, or the relocation of the leader of the group, or sometimes shortage of funds to keep the group going. Different group development models which will be discussed here are Garland, Jones and Colodny model, also known as the Boston model, Tuckman model, Northern and Curlin model, and the Bales model. Garland, Jones and Colodny developed a model that identifies 5 stages of development in social work group. By describing and understanding the various kinds of developmental problems in groups, group leaders, they can effectively anticipate and respond to the reactions of the group members. Emotional closeness among group members is the central focus of the model, and is reflected in the struggles which occur in 5 stages of group growth, which are pre-affiliation, power and control, intimacy, differentiation, and separation. So in the first stage, pre-affiliation, members they have some sort of ambivalence about joining the group, a kind of hesitation, and interaction is often guarded. Members they test out often through approach and avoidance behavior whether they really want to belong or not in the group. So it takes some time. So this stage will usually end when members start to feel safe and comfortable within the group and to view its reward as worth a tentative emotional commitment. The next stage is power and control. In the second stage, power and control, the character of the group starts to emerge. Patterns of communication, alliances, and subgroups they begin to develop. The individuals they will assume certain roles and responsibilities, establish norms and methods for handling group tasks, and begin to ask questions. In the third stage, intimacy, the likes and dislikes of the intimate relationships are expressed. The group becomes more like a family. Feelings are now openly expressed and discussed, and the group is viewed as a place where growth and change will take place. Individuals feel free to examine and make efforts to change personal attitudes, concern, and problems, and there is a feeling of oneness or cohesiveness. Members struggle to explore and make changes in their personal lives and to examine and start asking questions like what is this group all about. During the fourth stage, differentiation, members are now free to experiment with new and alternative behavior patterns because they recognize the individual rights and needs and they are able to communicate more effectively. Leadership is more evenly shared, roles are more functional, and the organization itself is more efficient. Power problems will be minimal, and decisions are made and carried out on a less emotional and more objective basis. The final stage is separation. Group purposes have been achieved, and members have learned new behavioral patterns to enable them to move on to other social experiences. Termination is not always easy. Group members will be reluctant to move on and can display a regressive, aggressive behavior to prolong the existence of the group. Members may express anger also and may psychologically deny that termination is approaching. How can the social worker handle this situation? To facilitate separation, the final stage of the group formation, the social worker must be willing to let go. Concentration upon group and individual mobility, evaluation of the experience, help with the expression of the ambivalence about termination, and recognition of the progress which has been made are his or her major task. Acceptance of termination is facilitated by active guidance of the members as individuals to other ongoing sources of support and assistance. The Tuckman model has 5 developmental stages: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. The number 1 stage, forming, here the members become oriented toward each other, work on being accepted, and learn more about the group. This stage is marked by a period of uncertainty in which members try to determine their places in the group and learn the group's rule and procedure. The next stage is storming. The conflict begins to arise as members resist the influence of the group and rebel against accomplishing their task. Members confront their various differences, and the management of conflict often becomes the focus of attention. The next stage, norming, the group establishes cohesiveness and commitment. In this process, the members discover new ways to work together. Norms are also set for appropriate behavior. Next, performing. The group works as a unit to achieve group goals. Members develop proficiency in achieving goals and become more flexible in their patterns of working together. The last stage, adjourning. The group disbands. The feelings that members experience are similar to those in the separation stage of the Garland, Jones, and Collardny model described in the previous section. The Norton and Garland model, this focuses on the stages of group development and point out that each stage has its own developmental issues which must be attended to and at least partially resolved before the group can move on to the next stage. Norton and Garland propose a 4-stage model with emphasis on socio-emotional themes. Number 1, inclusion orientation. The main socio-emotional theme of this stage, as the title also implies, is that whether or not group members will feel included. This stage is very typically marked by anxiety and uncertainty as group members become acquainted with the group leader and each other. The major task for the members is to become oriented to the group and to decide to be included in the group's membership. The next stage is uncertainty and exploration. The major theme of this stage has to do with group members' uncertainty regarding issues of power and control. The socio-emotional issue which pertains to conflict, especially in relationship to the group leader. Group members at this stage, they will explore and test their relationship with the leader and each other in order to establish roles and develop trust and acceptance. The next stage is mutuality goal achievement. In this stage, the group is characterized by mutual aid and problem solving. Socio-emotional patterns among group members will show greater self-disclosure, empathy, and mutual acceptance. Conflict and differences are dealt with as a means to achieve both individual and group goals. The last stage is separation termination. This final stage will focus on the socio-emotional issues of separation and termination. Members at this stage will be reluctant to leave the leader and the group. The task here is to help them prepare for termination, deal with any unfinished business, and most importantly, help the group members transfer what they have learned in group to life outside the group. All the models of group development which were discussed just now, they are all sequential stage models, since they all specify sequential stages of group development. There is a sequence which we can see. However, Robert F. Bales, he developed a recurring phase model. Bales, he says that groups continue to seek an equilibrium between task-oriented work and emotional expressions in order to build better relationships among group members. Bales says that groups tend to oscillate between these two concerns. Sometimes a group focuses on identifying and performing the task that will lead to achievement of the goals, and at other times the group will focus on building the morale and improving the social emotional atmosphere of the group.